Imagine this. You're a mother of two beautiful children. You worked yourself to the bone, 2 jobs, endless nights, and still, when you open your wallet, all you see is $30. $30 to celebrate the most important day of the year for your kids, their birthday. Now, picture the weight of that moment. The guilt pressing down on your chest. The fear that your children will notice the struggle you've tried so hard to hide. The silent prayer that somehow, some way, you'll make this day magical for them. This is the story of Emily Carter, a woman who had nothing left but courage, love, and 30 crumpled dollars in her purse. A woman who was determined to give her twins, Liam and Lily, a birthday they would never forget, even if it meant sacrificing her own comfort. But what Emily didn't know was that fate had a twist waiting for her. Because on that very day, in that very diner where she hoped to stretch her last $30 into pancakes and balloons, the door would swing open, and it would walk the man who had abandoned her years ago. The man who left her when she needed him most. The man who had since become a billionaire. Yes, you heard that right. The billionaire who had walked away from her and her unborn children was about to walk right back into her life. And what happened next would not only shake Emily's world, but also leave everyone in that diner stunned. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It isn't just about betrayal. This is a story about resilience, about the strength of a mother's love, about the power of forgiveness, and the kind of second chances that money can't buy. So, before you scroll away, let me tell you why you want to stay with me until the very end. Because this story will take you on a journey through pain, through hope, through confrontation, and finally, through transformation. It will remind you that no matter how broken life feels, no matter how small the number in your bank account, there is always something greater at work. Emily's story is not just her own. It's a reflection of so many people who have been left behind, who have been underestimated, who have been told they weren't enough. And yet, like Emily, they rise. They fight. They prove that love and courage are worth more than billions. Now, let's set the scene. It's a small town in Ohio. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where the diner is a hard community, and where dreams often feel too big for the streets they're born on. Emily lives in a modest apartment, works long hours, and carries the weight of the world on her shoulders. But today, she's not thinking about bills or overdue rent. Today, she's thinking about Liam and Lily. She dresses in their best clothes, brushes her hair, and tells them they're going to diner for a birthday breakfast. The twins are excited. They don't care about fancy gifts or expensive parties. To them, pancakes with mom are more than enough. But Emily knows the truth. She knows she's down to her last $30. She knows she can't afford cake or presents or even a balloon unless she sacrifices groceries for the week. And yet she smiles, because that's what mothers do. They smile through the storm. And then it happens. The bell above the diner door jingles. Emily looks up, and her heart stops. Daniel Hayes, the man who once held her hand and promised her forever. The man who disappeared when she told him she was pregnant. The man who built an empire while she built a life for 2 children alone. He's standing there in a tailored suit, exuding power, wealth, and confidence. But here's the twist. He doesn't just see Emily. He sees the twins. And in that instant, the past collides with the present. What will happen next? Will Daniel acknowledge them? Will Emily let him back into their lives? Will the twins discover the truth about the father they never knew? Stay with me, because this story is about to unfold in ways you won't expect. It's about to test the limits of pride, forgiveness, and love. And by the end, you'll see why Emily's $30 turned out to be worth more than Daniel's billions. So grab your seat, open your heart, and let's dive into this unforgettable journey. Because once you hear Emily's story, you'll never look at resilience or second chances the same way again. Emily Carter's mornings always began the same way. Before the sun rose, before the world stirred, before children even opened their eyes. She would slip quietly out of bed, her body aching from the double shift she worked, and tiptoe into the kitchen of their small Ohio apartment. The fridge was nearly empty. A carton of milk, half a loaf of bread, and a few eggs. She sighed, running her hand through her hair. Today was supposed to be different. Today was Liam and Lily's birthday. 8 years old. 8 years of laughter, tears, scraped knees, bedtime stories, and whispered prayers. But as she opened her worn leather wallet, the truth stared back at her. $30. That was it. $30 to make her children feel celebrated, loved, and special. $30 to cover what other parents might spend hundreds on: balloons, cake, presents, decorations. Emily pressed her lips together, fighting back tears. She couldn't let them see her cry. She couldn't let them feel the weight of her struggle. She whispered to herself, "This has to be enough. It has to." The twins stirred in the bedroom. Liam's voice, groggy but excited, called out, "Mom, is it today? Is it our birthday?" Emily forced a smile as she walked in. "Yes, sweetheart. Today's your big day." Lily jumped out of bed, her hair a wild mess of curls. "Can we go to the diner? Please? Pancakes with sprinkles." Emily hesitated. The diner wasn't cheap, not for someone counting every dollar. But she nodded. "Yes, pancakes with sprinkles. We'll make it special." She dressed them in their best clothes, hand-me-downs, but clean and pressed. She braided Lily's hair, straightened Liam's collar, and told them how proud she was. As they walked down the street, Emily's mind raced. She thought about the bills waiting at home, the rent due in a week, the groceries she still needed to buy. But she pushed it all aside. Today wasn't about her. Today was about them. The diner's neon sign flickered in the distance. The smell of bacon and coffee drifted through the air. The twins ran ahead, laughing, their voices echoing with joy. Emily followed slowly, clutching her purse, her heart heavy with both love and fear. She had no idea that behind the door of that diner, her past was waiting. A past she thought she had buried. A past that would walk right back into her life, dressed in wealth and power, and force her to face everything she had tried to forget. The bell above the diner door jingled, a sound so ordinary, so harmless, that most people barely noticed it. But for Emily Carter, that sound was like thunder rolling across her soul. She looked up from the menu, her fingers tightening around the laminated page until her knuckles turned white. And there he was, Daniel Hayes, the man who had once whispered promises of forever, the man who had walked away when she needed him most, the man who had built an empire while she built a life for 2 children alone. He stood in the doorway, framed by the morning light, his tailored suit crisp, his shoes polished, his presence commanding. Conversations in the diner faltered, heads turned. Daniel Hayes wasn't just a man anymore. He was a name, a brand, a billionaire whose face had graced magazines and business channels. But to Emily, he was something else entirely. He was the ghost of her past. Her heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to look away, to disappear, to shield her children from the storm that had just walked in. But she couldn't move. She was frozen, caught between fear, anger, and disbelief. Daniel scanned the room casually, as though he were just another customer. But then his eyes landed on her, and everything changed. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. Why would he? Years had passed. Emily's once carefree face now carried the quiet lines of sacrifice. Her hair, one styled with care, was pulled back in a simple braid. Her clothes were modest, practical. She was no longer the young woman he had left behind. But then his gaze shifted to the twins, Liam and Lily, sitting at the booth, their faces glowing with excitement, their laughter filling the air. And Daniel froze. The resemblance was undeniable. The curve of Liam's jaw, the sparkle in Lily's eyes. It was like looking into a mirror of his younger self. His expression faltered. For the first time in years, Daniel Hayes, the billionaire who commanded boardrooms and conquered markets, looked uncertain. Emily's stomach twisted. She wanted to grab her children and run. But Liam's voice broke the silence. "Mom, can we get pancakes with sprinkles?" Emily forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart." Daniel took a step forward. His voice, smooth but hesitant, carried across the diner. Emily, her name on his lips, felt like a wound reopening. She looked up, her eyes sharp. Daniel. The air between them crackled with tension. The diner, once filled with chatter, seemed to hold its breath. Daniel approached slowly, his gaze flicking between Emily and the twins. "Are they?" he began, his voice trailing off. Emily cut him off, her tone firm. They're mine." The twins looked up curiously, sensing the tension but not understanding it. Lily tilted her head. "Mom, who is that man?" Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to protect them from the truth, from the pain, from the history that was suddenly standing in front of them. But before she could answer, Daniel spoke. "I'm an old friend of your mom's." Emily's eyes burned with anger. "Friend? That's what you call it." Daniel flinched. He wasn't used to being challenged. Not anymore. Not in his world of yes-men and admirers. But Emily's words cut through his armor. The waitress arrived with the pancakes, breaking the moment. The twins cheered, their innocence a stark contrast to the storm brewing at the table. Daniel hesitated, then reached for his wallet. "Let me cover this. It's the least I can do." Emily's voice was sharp, almost trembling. "No, we don't need your money." The firmness in her tone silenced him. Around them, whispers began. The townsfolk knew Emily. They knew her struggle. And now, they were watching the collision of two worlds, the billionaire and the single mother he had left behind. Emily focused on her children, cutting their pancakes, laughing at their jokes, pretending everything was fine. But inside, her heart was a battlefield. Daniel lingered nearby, unsure of his place, unsure of his next move. For the first time in years, he wasn't in control. As Emily gathered her things to leave, Daniel followed her outside. The confrontation was inevitable. The past had caught up, and there was no escaping it now. The morning air was crisp as Emily stepped onto the sidewalk, her children skipping ahead, their laughter echoing down the street. But Daniel's footsteps followed close behind. "Emily, wait," he called. She stopped, her shoulders stiff, her back still turned to him. For a moment, she considered walking away, pretending she hadn't heard. But something inside her, anger, pride, maybe even the need for closure, made her turn. Her eyes met his, and for the first time in years, they stood face to face. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with steel. He hesitated, searching for words. I didn't know. About them. About you." Emily laughed bitterly. "You didn't want to know. Don't pretend this is some tragic accident. I told you. I begged you to stay. And you walked away." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked down, ashamed. "I was young. I was scared. I thought I wasn't ready." Emily's voice rose, trembling with years of suppressed pain. "Not ready? I carried them alone. I worked 2 jobs. I cried myself to sleep wondering how I'd feed them, how I'd keep the lights on. And you," she pointed at him, her hand shaking, "you were out there building your empire, living your dream, while I was living a nightmare." Daniel's eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. "I can't change the past, Emily, but I can change now. Let me help. Let me be part of their lives." Emily shook her head. "You think you can just walk back in, flash your money, buy their love, and erase the years you missed? It doesn't work like that." Behind them, Liam and Lily tugged at Emily's sleeve. "Mom, can we go to the park?" Emily swallowed hard, her anger softening as she looked at their innocent faces. She nodded. "Yes, sweethearts. Let's go." Daniel's voice was quiet, almost pleading. "Can I come?" Emily hesitated. Every instinct screamed no, but something, maybe the faintest flicker of hope, maybe the belief that her children deserved the truth, made her pause. "Fine," she said finally, "but this isn't about you. This is about them. Don't you dare hurt them." Daniel nodded, his face solemn. "I won't." And so, for the first time, the billionaire would abandon them, walk beside them, not as a stranger, not as a businessman, but as a man trying to face the consequences of his choices. At the park, laughter would mix with tension. Old wounds would clash with new beginnings. And Emily would be forced to decide whether forgiveness was possible or whether some scars run too deep to ever heal. The revelation was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The park was alive with the sounds of children's swings creaking, laughter echoing, the rhythmic thud of a basketball on cracked pavement. Liam and Lily ran ahead, their joy unshaken, their innocence untouched by the storm brewing between their mother and the man trailing behind. Emily sat on a weathered bench, her eyes following her twins as they climbed the jungle gym. She wanted to focus on them, to let their laughter drown out the chaos in her chest. But Daniel Hayes stood only a few feet away, his presence impossible to ignore. For years, she had imagined this moment. She had rehearsed what she would say if he ever came back. She had pictured herself strong, unshakable, ready to unleash every ounce of pain he had caused. But now, with him standing there, flesh and blood, she felt something she hadn't expected. Exhaustion. Daniel cleared his throat, his voice low. "Emily, I don't even know where to begin." She turned to him, her eyes sharp. "Begin with the truth. For once in your life, Daniel, just tell the truth." He swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the ground. "When you told me you were pregnant, I panicked. I was young, ambitious, terrified. I thought a family would hold me back. I told myself I wasn't ready, that I had bigger things to chase. So I left. I convinced myself it was the right thing to do. But I was wrong. God, I was so wrong." Emily's laugh was bitter, hollow. "Wrong? You think that word even begins to cover it? Do you know what it's like to sit in a hospital bed, holding 2 newborns, and realize the man who promised to love you isn't coming back? Do you know what it's like to work double shifts to choose between paying rent and buying diapers? You don't. You never will." Daniel's voice cracked. "I can't undo the past, but I can be here now. I can help. I can give them everything they deserve." Emily's eyes burned with fury. "Everything they deserve? You think they need your money? They don't need mansions or private schools or trust funds. They need a father. They needed you 8 years ago, and you weren't there." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unrelenting. Daniel's shoulders sagged. For the first time, the billionaire looked small. Liam's voice cut through the tension. "Mom, watch me," he shouted from the top of the slide. Emily forced a smile, waving at him. "I see you, baby. Be careful." Daniel watched too, his eyes softening. He's incredible. They both are." Emily's tone was sharp. "Of course they are, because I raised them. Alone." Silence stretched between them, the only sounds of the children's laughter and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Finally, Daniel spoke again, his voice quiet, almost pleading. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to trust me overnight. But please, let me try. Let me prove I can be different." Emily shook her head, her voice trembling. "You don't get to just walk back in and rewrite history. You don't get to erase the nights I cried myself to sleep, the birthdays you missed, the questions I couldn't answer when they asked why they didn't have a dad." Her voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You don't get to erase the pain, Daniel. You don't." Daniel's own eyes glistened. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small photograph, creased, worn, clearly carried for years. He handed it to her with shaking hands. Emily hesitated, then took it, her breath caught. It was a picture of them, young, carefree, taken before everything fell apart. "I kept it," Daniel whispered, "all these years. I told myself I didn't care, but I did. I thought about you, about what I lost, about what I threw away." Emily stared at the photo, her heart twisting. She wanted to rip it in half, to throw it back at him, but she couldn't, because deep down, beneath the anger and the hurt, there was still a part of her that remembered the man she had once loved. She closed her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't get to come back just because you feel guilty. You don't get to decide when it's convenient for you to be a father." Daniel's voice was steady now, filled with determination. "Then let them decide. Let Liam and Lily decide if they want me in their lives. I'll show up. I'll be here, not as a billionaire, not as some stranger with money, but as their father, if they'll let me." Emily's chest tightened. She looked at her children, their laughter ringing out like music. Could she deny them the chance to know their father? Could she risk letting him in, only for him to hurt them again? Her mind was a storm of fear and hope, anger and longing. And then, as if fate itself wanted to push her toward an answer, Lily ran over, her cheeks flushed, her eyes sparkling. "Mom, can you come play with us?" she asked, pointing at Daniel. Emily froze. The question hung in the air, simple yet impossible. Daniel knelt down, his eyes level with Lily's. His voice was gentle, almost reverent. Only if your mom says it's okay. Emily's heart ached. She looked at her daughter, at her son, at the man who had once broken her. And in that moment, she realized the truth. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about them. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. Fine. Go. Play. But Daniel, this is your chance. Don't you dare waste it. Daniel nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. I won't. And for the first time, he joined his children. He pushed them on the swings, chased them across the grass, laughed with them as though he had been there all along. Emily watched from the bench, her emotions a tangled mess. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to forgive him. She wanted to protect her children from the pain she knew he was capable of causing. But as she watched Liam and Lily's faces light up, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, people could change. Hope that maybe, just maybe, her children could have the father they deserved. And yet, deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Because forgiveness is never simple. And redemption is never easy. The revelation had come. Daniel wanted to be part of their lives. But whether Emily could let him, that was a question only time could answer. At the park that day, something shifted. A door that had been locked for 8 years cracked open. But with it came new questions, new fears, and new possibilities. Could Daniel truly change? Could Emily truly forgive? And could a family broken by betrayal ever be made whole again? The transformation was coming, and it would test them all in ways they never imagined. The transformation was real, but forgiveness is never simple. And as Emily stood on the edge of a new chapter, she knew the hardest choice was still ahead, because love can heal, but it can also break. And the conclusion of their story would demand the greatest act of courage yet. The park that day was more than just a playground. It was a stage where the past and the present collided, where choices would echo into the future. Emily sat on the bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes never leaving her children. Liam and Lily ran across the grass, their laughter ringing out like bells. And beside them, awkward at first, but slowly loosening, was Daniel Hayes, the billionaire, the man who had once abandoned them, the man who now chased his children across the park like any ordinary father. Emily's heart was a storm. She wanted to scream, to cry, to laugh, to believe. She wanted to protect her children from disappointment. But she also wanted to give them the chance to know the man who had given them life. Daniel's laughter surprised her. It wasn't the polished, rehearsed chuckle she had seen on television interviews. It was real, raw, the kind of laugh that came from deep inside, the kind that only children could pull out of a man. Liam tackled him to the ground, giggling. Lily climbed onto his back, shouting, "Giddy up, Daddy." The word hit Emily like a knife. Daddy. They had never called anyone that before. Daniel froze for a moment, his eyes glistening. Then he smiled, his voice breaking. "Hold on tight, cowgirl." Emily looked away, tears stinging her eyes. She had fought so hard to be both mother and father. She had carried the weight of 2 roles, never letting herself imagine this moment. And now here it was. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Daniel walked back to the bench. He was out of breath, his suit jacket discarded, his tie loosened. For the first time, he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a man. "They're amazing," he said softly, sitting beside her. Emily didn't look at him. They always have been. Silence stretched between them, the kind of silence that carried years of unspoken words. Finally, Daniel spoke again. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I want one. Not for me, for them. I want to be here. I want to show up. I want to earn their trust. And yours." Emily turned to him, her eyes sharp. "Words are easy, Daniel. You've always been good with words. But words don't tuck children into bed. Words don't pay bills. Words don't heal wounds." Daniel nodded, his gaze steady. "Then let me prove it with actions. Give me the chance to show you I've changed. Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe people could change. But the scars on her heart whispered caution. Before she could respond, an elderly voice interrupted. "Emily?" She looked up. It was Mr. Thompson, her neighbor. The old man shuffled toward them, his cane tapping against the pavement. His eyes twinkled with wisdom, his smile gentle. "I thought I recognized you," he said to Daniel. "You're the one who left, aren't you?" Daniel's face flushed with shame. "Yes, sir, I was." Mr. Thompson nodded slowly. "Takes a man to admit that, but it takes a better man to make it right." He turned to Emily, his voice soft. "Forgiveness isn't for him, dear. It's for you. Don't let bitterness steal your joy. Don't let the past chain you down." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She had always respected Mr. Thompson. His words carried weight. Daniel looked at her, his voice trembling. "Please, Emily, let me try." She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "Fine. You want to prove yourself? Then prove it. Show up. Be here. Not just today, not just tomorrow. Every day. Because if you walk away again, Daniel, it won't be me you'll hurt. It'll be them." Daniel nodded, his eyes fierce with determination. "I won't walk away. Not again. Not ever." And so the transformation began. It wasn't easy. It wasn't instant. But slowly, day by day, Daniel Hayes began to shed the skin of the billionaire and step into the role of a father. He showed up at the diner on Saturday mornings, not in a suit, but in jeans and a t-shirt, ready to share pancakes with his children. He helped Liam with his math homework, fumbling through fractions with a humility Emily had never seen in him before. He braided Lily's hair, badly at first, but with practice, he got better. He was there at soccer games, cheering louder than anyone else. He was there at bedtime, reading stories in silly voices that made the twins giggle until they couldn't breathe. And slowly, Emily began to see something she hadn't expected. Consistency. Daniel wasn't just talking. He was doing. But still, Emily's heart wrestled with doubt. Could a man who had once abandoned them truly be trusted? Or was this just another chapter in a story destined to end in heartbreak? Emily tested him. She didn't make it easy. She asked him to pick the kids up from school, half expecting him not to show. But he did. She asked him to sit through parent-teacher conferences, expecting him to be bored or distracted. But he listened, asked questions, took notes. One evening, when the twins were asleep, Emily confronted him again. "Why now, Daniel? Why after all these years?" He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because I finally realized what matters. I built skyscrapers, companies, fortunes. But none of it means anything without them, without family, without you." Emily's breath caught. She wanted to believe him. But belief was dangerous. Belief had broken her before. And yet, as the weeks turned into months, she couldn't deny what she saw. Daniel was changing, not just in words, but in actions. The children adored him. Liam looked up to him, eager to show him every drawing, every soccer goal, every new discovery. Lily clung to him, her laughter brighter when he was around. And Emily found herself softening, against her will, against her fear. She began to see the man she had once loved, not the billionaire, not the boy who had run away, but the man who was trying, truly trying, to make things right. Still, the question lingered. Could she forgive him? Could she let go of the pain that had defined her for so long? Transformation is never a single moment. It isn't a grand gesture or a sudden change of heart. It's 1,000 small choices, repeated day after day, until the person you once were is unrecognizable. For Daniel Hayes, transformation began not with money, but with humility. The first test came just a week later. Emily had asked him to pick up Liam and Lily from school. She hadn't expected him to remember. She had half prepared herself for a phone call from the school office, the embarrassment of explaining that their father had forgotten. But when she arrived home, she found Daniel sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, still in his work clothes, tie loosened, shoes off. Liam was showing him a science project, explaining every detail with wide-eyed excitement. Lily was braiding his hair, badly, but with determination. And Daniel, he was listening, really listening. Emily stood in the doorway, watching. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, not the man who had left, but a father. Still, her heart resisted. That night, after the twins were asleep, she confronted him. "Why are you really here, Daniel? Is this guilt? Is this some attempt to polish your image? Because I won't let you use them for your redemption story." Daniel's eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "This isn't about my image. No one even knows I'm here. This is about them. About you. About making right what I broke." Emily wanted to believe him, but belief was dangerous. The weeks turned into months. Daniel kept showing up. He was there at Liam's soccer games, cheering louder than anyone else, even when Liam missed a ball. He was there at Lily's school play, sitting in the front row, his eyes shining with pride as she delivered her lines. He was there on quiet evenings, helping with homework, fumbling through math problems he hadn't solved in decades, laughing at his own mistakes. And slowly, the walls Emily had built began to crack. One evening, as they walked home from the park, Lily slipped her small hand into Daniel's. He looked down, startled, then smiled. Emily saw it and her chest tightened. Later that night, she whispered to herself, "Don't fall for this. Don't forget what he did." But her heart betrayed her because she could see the change. She could feel it, and so could the children. Liam began to draw pictures of their family, 4 stick figures instead of 3. Lily began to talk about Daddy as though he had always been there. Emily's fear grew. What if he left again? What if this was temporary? What if he broke their hearts the way he had broken hers? The thought kept her awake at night. One evening, Emily found herself sitting on the porch with Mr. Thompson, her elderly neighbor. The old man sipped his tea, his eyes wise and kind. "You're scared," he said simply. Emily sighed. "Of course I'm scared. He left once. What's to stop him from leaving again?" Mr. Thompson nodded. "Nothing, except the man he's becoming. People can change, Emily. I've lived long enough to see it. But forgiveness isn't about trusting him. It's about freeing yourself." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "But what if he hurts them?" Mr. Thompson placed a gentle hand on hers. "Then you'll be there to catch them. You always have been. But don't let fear steal their chance at love. Don't let the past steal their future." His words lingered in her heart long after he left. Daniel's transformation wasn't perfect. There were missteps. He missed a school pickup once because of a meeting that ran late. Emily's anger flared, her trust shaken. But Daniel didn't make excuses. He apologized. He promised to do better. And he did. He began rearranging his life. He stepped back from his company, delegating responsibilities to others. He traded boardrooms for playgrounds, business trips for bedtime stories. And slowly, Emily began to see the truth. He wasn't just trying. He was changing. One night, as they tucked the twins into bed, Lily whispered, "This was the best day ever." Daniel kissed her forehead, his voice breaking. "Every day with you is the best day ever." Emily stood in the doorway, her heart aching. She wanted to hold on to her anger, her resentment. But watching him with her children, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The transformation wasn't just Daniel's. It was Emily's too. She had carried bitterness like armor, protecting herself from pain. But now, she faced a choice: keep the armor on and stay safe, or take it off and risk being hurt again. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Daniel turned to her. "Emily, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. Can you forgive me?" Her breath caught. The question she had dreaded. The question she had rehearsed 1,000 answers for. She looked at him, at the man who had once broken her, at the father who was now mending their children's hearts. Her voice trembled. "I don't know if I can. Not yet, but maybe someday." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "That's enough. That's more than I deserve." And for the first time, Emily felt the weight on her chest begin to lift. The transformation was far from complete. Forgiveness was still a distant horizon, but the journey had begun. Daniel was no longer just a billionaire. He was a father. Emily was no longer just a survivor. She was a woman learning to hope again. And Liam and Lily, they were no longer children with a missing piece. They were children with a family, imperfect, fragile, but real. The transformation was underway. But the conclusion, the true test of love, forgiveness, and second chances, was still to come. The transformation was real, but forgiveness is never simple. As Emily stood on the edge of a new chapter, she knew the hardest choice was still ahead, because love can heal, but it can also break, and the conclusion of their story would demand the greatest act of courage yet. Months had passed since that day in the park. What began as a fragile experiment had grown into something real. Daniel Hayes, once a billionaire defined by boardrooms and headlines, was now learning the rhythms of fatherhood. But the journey was far from over, because transformation is one thing, forgiveness is another. Emily Carter still carried scars. Scars from nights spent alone, from birthdays celebrated with nothing but dollar store candles, from the crushing weight of responsibility she had borne without him. And though Daniel had shown up, though he had proven himself in small, steady ways, the question still lingered. Could she forgive him? And more importantly, should she? The test came one rainy evening. The twins had been invited to a birthday party across town. Emily was working late, so Daniel offered to take them. She hesitated, her old fears rising. Could she trust him to be responsible? To put them first? But she agreed. Hours later, as the rain poured down, Emily sat by the window, her heart pounding. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound outside made her flinch. Then, headlights swept across the driveway. The car door opened, and there they were, Liam and Lily, running through the rain, their arms full of party favors, their laughter echoing through the night. Daniel followed, soaked to the bone, carrying their jackets, his hair plastered to his forehead. He looked exhausted, but he was smiling. Emily's breath caught. For the first time, she realized something. He wasn't just trying. He was committed. Later that night, after the twins were asleep, Emily found herself standing in the kitchen with Daniel. The rain tapped against the windows, the house quiet. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Why now, Daniel? Why after all these years?" He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because I finally understand what matters. I thought success was about money, about power, about building something the world would remember. But none of it means anything without them, without family, without you." Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let go of the anger that had defined her for so long. But forgiveness felt like a mountain too high to climb. Daniel stepped closer, his voice soft. "I can't change the past. I can't erase the pain I caused. But I can spend the rest of my life trying to make it right, not with words, with actions, every single day." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She turned away, her voice breaking. "You don't know how many nights I prayed for this. Not for you to come back, but for the strength to do it without you. And now you're here, and I don't know what to do with that." Daniel's voice cracked. "Then let me help carry the weight. Please, let me be the man I should have been from the start." The moment hung between them, fragile and heavy. Emily's heart was a battlefield, anger and love, fear and hope, all colliding. And then from the hallway, a small voice broke the silence. "Mom? Dad?" They turned. Liam stood there, rubbing his eyes, his voice sleepy. Emily froze. "Dad." He had said Dad. Daniel's breath caught, his eyes glistening. He knelt down, opening his arms. Liam walked into them, resting his head on Daniel's shoulder. Emily's tears spilled over, because in that moment, she realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing the future. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to choose hope. The weeks that followed were different, lighter. Emily still carried her scars, but they no longer defined her. Daniel still carried his guilt, but he no longer let it control him. Together, they began to build something new. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments, missteps, moments of doubt, but there was also laughter. There were family dinners, bedtime stories, Saturday mornings at the diner. And slowly, Emily began to forgive, not because Daniel deserved it, but because she deserved peace. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to him. I forgive you, she whispered. Daniel's breath caught, his eyes filling with tears. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. Thank you, he said softly. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I was worth that forgiveness. And for the first time in years, Emily felt free. Emily Carter thought $30 was all she had. $30 to make her twins' birthday special. $30 to hold her family together. But what she truly had was worth more than billions. She had courage. She had love. She had the strength to forgive. And in the end, that was enough to transform not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. Because sometimes the greatest riches aren't found in bank accounts or skyscrapers. They're found in second chances. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can give isn't money or gifts. It's forgiveness. Emily's story is a reminder to us all, no matter how broken the past, no matter how heavy the scars, there's always hope. There's always the possibility of redemption. And there's always the power of love. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs hope today. And if you believe in the power of love, resilience, and second chances, hit that like button. Subscribe for more inspiring stories. And let's keep spreading light together. Because the world needs more stories like Emily's. Stories that remind us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. And sometimes all it takes is $30 and the courage to forgive.